Whilst the Carth Howarder was travelling the hyperspace route to our next destination, I revisited the files we had recovered and made copies of from the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine. Darth Revan and Malak's Sith Empire was a threat to the Old Republic and was close to toppling over the powerhouse of the galaxy. The Sith Empire began its dominance from the northeast and spread south across the galaxy. Our next destination was at the heart of the Sith Empire. There they trained those who were Force sensitive or Jedi, disillusioned by their order at the Sith Academy. What was bizarre, however, was that the final trial to becoming a Sith was to enter the tomb of Nagus Do, follow the footsteps of the ultimate master, Darth Revan and Malak, and reach the star map that lies deep within. I have to admit, finding the locations of the star map have been a lot easier than I had initially imagined, but acquiring them is what proves more the task. To enter a Sith tomb and venture on a trial meant for Sith would be extremely difficult and dangerous. I could ask for Darth Vader, an actual Lord of the Sith, but handing over the expedition to him could turn on us for the worse. Anyway, Lord Vader has become more concerned on his own mission to define the destructor of the DS-1 orbital battle station, Luke Skywalker, a mission he has taken very personally. I suppose the Inquisitors could be of use, but their numbers are kept hidden, and I'm not even sure if there are any operating. No, I must do this myself with the resources I have. Leaving hyperspace, the Carth Howarder was viewing the isolated planet, accompanied by wrecked age-old space stations and debris of rock and metal. The planet is as lifeless as the company that orbits. Abandoned and desolate, the world of the Sith holds many names: Besigum, Moraband, but most refer it to the title of Korriban. Flying past the neglected settlement of Dresde, the Carth Howarder carefully arrived by the valley, dwarfed by towering sculptures of the Six Watchers staring at those beneath them. Squeezing in the valley, the Carth Howarder displaced the red sand, revealing the cracked sandstone of tombs and ancient memories and legends. Ahead was the centerpiece of the Valley of the Dark Lords. Colossal in size, the pyramid eclipsed the sun. The pyramid was once the Sith Academy in Darth Revan's and Malak's Sith Empire. However, as the eras went by, the Sith extinguished due to infighting and power plays. From that lesson, the rule of two was born from the only Sith Lord relatively remembered through history, Darth Bane. His teachings became what the Sith are: a master and an apprentice, no more and no less. The idea being that once the Sith apprentice has learned everything they can from their master, is strong enough, must defeat them and become the master themselves and teach a new apprentice. Thus the cycle continues, with each apprentice and master becoming more knowledgeable and powerful as eras go by. Today, the pyramid is now repurposed as a Jedi sacrificial chamber and the tomb of Darth Bane. Even though I do not fully understand the Sith and how they operate today, I must admit the history and legends are awe-bounding. Whether or not the exploits of the Sith Lords are true, the legends themselves are worth retelling and exploring. The stories I'd once heard as a child were now in front of me, entombed in the sandstone of Korriban. The Valley of the Dark Lords housed 4 tombs, gathered in front of the pyramid, side by side, hugging the cliff wall. Port side of the Carth Howarder, at the left, furthest away from the pyramid, was the tomb of Tulak Hord, known as the greatest lightsaber duelist of the Sith Lords. His skill was considered remarkable, even in his time, when many true lightsaber masters lived. What made him a master of his craft is unknown. However, supposedly, he created a holocron to teach his technique to other Sith. The holocron would have been laid to rest in his tomb. Unfortunately, Tulak Hord's tomb was among the first to be penetrated by grave robbers. If the holocron has survived, I doubt anyone would know its location. At the left, closest to the pyramid, lies the tomb of Ajunta Paul. According to legend, he became the first Lord of the Sith after his exile from the Jedi Order. He was exiled with his followers, of whom eventually discovered Korriban. Here the exiles and Ajunta Paul found the Sith species and manipulated them into believing them to be worshipped as gods. The Sith species referred to Gozanti-Class as their Janari, meaning Dark Lord in their tongue. As the first Dark Lord of the Sith, Gozanti-Class expanded the first Sith Empire onto other worlds near Korriban. His blade proved more fearsome than the Master, leading to his demise. He was buried here of what would then be called from thereforth the Valley of the Dark Lords. Opposite Gozanti-Class's tomb lie the tomb of the great Sith Lord Marga Ragnos. Legends say that he possessed tremendous strength, both physically and in the Force. Ragnos held power for over a century, using his cunning to turn his enemies against each other. His death left a great vacuum of power in his Sith Empire. We are currently standing close to the spot where, as legends say, Naga Sadow first confronted Ludo Kresh to vie for domination of the Sith. Their struggle nearly resulted in a civil war that would have torn the Sith apart before they ever threatened the Old Republic. Infighting and power plays were common among the Sith. They continually test their strength against each other, even if it means destroying themselves. During the conflict between Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh, a pair of hyperspace explorers from Siniga landed on Korriban. Naga Sadow manipulated the Sith into believing that they were Republic spies and a sign of impending Republic invasion. This fear resonated with many Sith who were discontent with the lack of expansion. Thus, Naga Sadow became Marga Ragnos' successor. Further down the right side of the valley, starboard of the Carth Howder, lies the tomb of Naga Sadow. As legends tell, he was the Sith Lord responsible for nearly conquering the Old Republic in the Great Hyperspace War. Referred also as the Sith War, it was arguably the most brutal and bloody war in galactic history during that time. In fact, one could argue that most wars since are an extension of the same conflict, with the Sith swearing vengeance against the Jedi upon their return. The Great Hyperspace War came at a time when the Old Republic was enjoying 1,000 years of peace and growth. Meanwhile, yet undiscovered by the Old Republic, the Sith were conquering systems near Korriban. They were now seeking new opportunities for expansion. Eager for war, the Sith embraced Naga Sadow as their new ruler. His first act was to travel from a direct hyperspace route from Korriban to Koros, launching a vicious assault on numerous Republic worlds, including Coruscant. Legends say that Naga Sadow commanded all of his forces from a meditation sphere, orbiting a giant star. The initial attack overwhelmed the Old Republic's unprepared defenses from multiple fronts. A Sith victory was assured. During the conflict, Coruscant became a contested battlefront between both factions. At some point, the Sith constructed a shrine of immense power on a mountain, what is now contained by the Jedi Temple, now the Emperor's Imperial Palace. The Old Republic and the Jedi Order managed to drive the Sith armies off Coruscant and arrange an aggressive counterattack, what pushed Naga Sadow and the Sith Empire back to Korriban. Infighting ensued among the Sith, and civil war broke out, fighting for power for the Sith Armada, whittling down their own fleets. The Sith were defenseless when the Republic attacked shortly after. Defeated, Naga Sadow fled into a permanent exile on Yavin 4. Meanwhile, the Jedi Order and Republic forces continued their attack on Korriban and other Sith worlds to ensure no remnant of the Sith Empire remained. It was this action what drove the surviving Sith to flee into deep space with their new Dark Lord, who rose to take Naga Sadow's place, vowing revenge on the Jedi. The Sith are definitely rich in legends and history, and are topics worth exploring in their own time. Leaving the Carth Howder, accompanied with Ensign Iona and 4 stormtroopers, I noticed a slight whisper in the wind. The weather on Korriban was not as harsh or as heated as it was on Tatooine, but the years have been unkind to the planet. Luckily, the walls of the valley have protected the tombs against the sands of time. However, the tomb of Naga Sadow was behind fallen sandstone from the cliff side. After a time, we managed to move the debris, and we could see the stone door had eroded over the eras, exposing a gap big enough to fit through. Advancing inside the tomb, the air was thick and musky. We turned on our torches to guide us down the elongated passage. Whether it was the wind passing through the cracks or eroding rock moaning in the distance, there was a rather uneasy feeling as we ventured further. This was a place meant for Sith to pass their trial, and we are nothing close to being recognized as such. Moving ahead to the antechamber, a lake of bubbling acid green liquid swam through, past the door, blocking our way across. There must clearly be a way past this obstacle elsewhere in the tomb. To the right, before the lake, was a door leading to a rather large annex with 2 pillars. One contained a red orb with fiery markings etched on, while the other contained a white orb with ice patterns. A thunderous crash was heard from behind us. Blocking the entrance of the annex was a large twisted beast, over 3 meters tall, roaring from its mountainous-like mouth, guarded by 2 protruding tusks. The beast aggressively pounded its humongous fists, then slashing the closest trooper with its spear-like claws. This was a Tarantatic, a creature what feeds off the blood of Force sensitives. Today, it will not be satisfied. The 3 remaining troopers antagonized the beast, continually shooting while avoiding its claws. It charged at one, devouring its prize. I ordered the others to stop shooting and escape the annex with Iona and I. Pursued by the beast, we divided as we narrowly dodged its attack. Separated from the others, my escape was now blocked by the beast. With the 2 orbs in my hand, I threw the red orb at where the Tarantatic was readying its charge. Then, a burst of fire erupted, and the orb exploded as the beast stood. The tomb rumbled, and the ceiling of the antechamber collapsed, crushing the beast. I used my comm to confirm that I was fine and what had just happened. Iona replied and said that he and the 2 troopers were okay, but concluded that the rocks and the stone were inaccessible to get past. Iona assured me that they would do everything in their power to clear and exit, but it would take time to execute. I was now trapped in the tomb. The only way to go now was forward to the lake. Approaching the lake, I concluded that it was logical that with the red orb being flammable, that the white orb with ice patterns was some sort of cryo grenade. Therefore, it was to be used for freezing the lake, creating a pathway across the acid. As I threw the orb into the lake, a flash of white blinded the room. A large crunch sound was audible as the bubbles of acid froze into place. In front was a green walkway leading to the door ahead. After carefully walking through the slippery ice, I opened the door, revealing nothing. The light from my torch could not penetrate the darkness ahead. A howl of wind swept past, whispering temptations into my ear. I took a step forward and entered the abyss.
The Order will surely banish us. Are the secrets of the star forge so valuable?
Whatever it is you found.
Can its power truly be worth the risk?
Do Emperor rules it necessary for your friends to place the treasure?
I've been reborn. My mind is clear.
So knowing all that would transpire, would you still follow Revan and I?
The whispers echoed in thoughts, fading out like ripples in water. What was that? A trick? Some sort of Sith test? Was any of it real? Or an illusion? The darkness evaporated, and the shroud was no more, revealing the burial chamber. However, the chamber lied empty, as Naga Sadao never returned to Korriban after he exiled himself from Yavin 4. Neither did his body return to his homeworld. Instead, at the far side, was a pyramid-shaped obsidian monument. The 3 pincers cracked open, blooming like a flower, to reveal an orb now hovering above, sparkling as it crackled and hummed. However, a fork of electricity spouted from the star map to the datapad I was about to record on. Then, the whole chamber illuminated, the orb exploded light depicting the galaxy. Yet, at my surprise, it seemed that the star map had collected the information from a datapad and displayed all 5 star maps merged within, placing the puzzle pieces together, forming a complete map of the Rakatan galaxy. The datapad pinged and had received the information from the star map. Finally, there it was, the hyperspace route to the doorstep of the elusive Infinite Empire, deep in the unknown regions. Double-checking that the data was recorded, I made my way back to the antechamber, relieved to see a small gap in the rubble, and made my way through. Greeted by Iona and the rest of the crew helping to clear the rubble, they all impatiently asked if I'd found the last star map. I tried my best to hide the overwhelming grin on my face, and the room became contagious of excitement and relief. Boarding the Carve Howder, prepared for takeoff, I accounted the trials in the tomb to the crew, but kept the details of the hallucinations to myself. I'm not quite sure myself what any of it meant, and if it wasn't just some trick as part of the Sith trial. The Carve Howder left the desolate world of Korriban. I was still in awe, maybe even shock, that in my hands was the key to finding the Starforge of what had eluded me since the very start of this expedition.